It's my honor to introduce the 96th President of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons. Wei-Ping Lee was born in Taiwan, the youngest of 5 children, seen here with his parents in the bottom right, with his brother and 3 sisters. His father, Shui Yanyi Lee, was a bomber pilot in the China Air Force during World War II, who followed Shi Young Kai-shek to Taiwan after the communists took over the mainland and was eventually promoted to the rank of lieutenant general. Our president grew up on an Air Force base in Taiwan, seen again here with his father, and standing in front of their family home in Taipei, where he lived from age 5 to 15. Here is a photo during his teenage years, again with his parents. He was sent to the United States to live with his siblings at 15 years of age. He went to 5 different schools in 5 cities in 5 years, between 1971 and 1975. It was Harvard for college, during which he and his roommates formed a disco DJ service, and our president was the DJ. It was Hopkins for medical school, followed by the Halsted Surgery Residency. Following full training in general surgery, it was back to Boston and the MGH for plastic surgery residency. Following that, a hand fellowship at Indiana with Jim Strickland. And in this autographed photo, Dr. Strickland wrote to our president, "I expect great things." He returned to the MGH, where he was on faculty for 9 years and the Hand Fellowship Program Director from 1997 to 2002, when he was recruited to the University of Pittsburgh as the chief of the then Division of Plastic Surgery. While at Pitt, he put together a hand transplant team and performed 8 transplants in 5 patients, including the world's first above-the-elbow arm transplantation. In 2010, sadly for me, he was recruited back to Hopkins to serve as chair of the Department of Plastic Surgery, where he continued the composite tissue allotransplantation program and is seen here with a patient and the U.S. Marine Corps Commandant General James Amos, who was visiting the transplant team. And here our president with that patient on The Late Show with David Letterman in 2014. The team at Hopkins also performed the first total penis and scrotum transplant in the world in 2018. And he is seen here at the dedication ceremony for his portrait, which hangs at Johns Hopkins. In 2019, he was recruited to UT Southwestern, where he currently serves as the provost of the health sciences and dean of the medical school. In 1979, during college, our president was engaged to Chimei Wong, and in the following year, during medical school, Andy and Terry were married. He and Terry have 3 children, John, Jackie, and Josh. Their eldest, John, who has special needs, is an avid Steelers fan who lives independently in a group home in Pittsburgh. Jackie and Josh both followed in their father's footsteps and graduated from Harvard College. Jackie is pursuing a graduate degree in psychology and counseling, and Josh is a software engineer and manager in a tech startup company. And here, a more recent Lee family photo with the 5 of them. In 2012, he served as president of the American Society for Surgery of the Hand. He is an avid lover of opera, and Puccini operas are his favorite OR background music and major hobby in life. His father wrote on this picture, "Watch him straddle the lion today with 2 feet. Await him to seize the world in the future with 1 hand." I believe few would disagree that our president has indeed seized the world and made a lasting impact on our field, countless patients, and a multitude of grateful mentees. I personally cannot adequately put into words here today the magnitude of influence that he has had on my career. I will forever be grateful. It is my profound honor to introduce the 96th President of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons, W.P. Andrew Lee.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that very kind introduction. It's humbling to have served as the president of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons, and it will be a privilege to share with you this afternoon some reflections on different stages of my career. Now, you notice we're running a little bit ahead in the program, and my presentation for the next 3 hours is your last hurdle before drinks and food. And you didn't think I could tell a joke. So this talk also represents the conclusion of a full day of a combined session for the first time between the American Association of Plastic Surgeons and the Plastic Surgery Research Council. We combined the programming between the two organizations not for convenience, but for synergy and common purpose. The purpose of the AAPS is to advance the science and art of plastic surgery through surgical education, research, scientific presentation, and professional interaction. And the PSRC is an inclusive organization focused on stimulating fundamental research in plastic surgery. Now, the membership of the two organizations is minimum by design. In other words, they overlap very little. Active members of PSRC must be under age of 50, and the earliest age to be elected to AAPS membership is typically in the 40s. Therefore, both organizations are dedicated to the advancement of the knowledge and teaching of the younger generation and jointly shape the future of plastic surgery by providing forums to respective members at different stages of their career. There's no better location to reaffirm our commitment to innovation than the city of Boston, where plastic surgery forefathers such as Dr. Varistat Kazanjian, Bradford Cannon, and Joseph Murray broke new grounds in reconstructive surgery. Dr. Kazanjian was a pioneer in oral maxillofacial surgery by treating soldiers from World War I with severe injuries to their jaws, noses, and skull. Dr. Cannon made critical contribution to the treatment of burn injuries and gained recognition for treating victims from the Coconut Grove fire as well as World War II. And Dr. Murray, as you heard, performed the first successful human kidney transplant between identical twins, for which he received the 1990 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. All three became presidents of the AAPS, and they collectively pushed forward the boundary of not just plastic and reconstructive surgery, but medicine at large. In 2002, I had the privilege of hosting the Plastic Surgery Research Council meeting at the Mass General Hospital. Dr. Cannon and Dr. Murray were honored guests of the meeting and held a special session after dinner at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. Our PSRC program book that year paid tributes to research and innovation as the origin of plastic surgery. Unlike other medical specialties, as you well know, plastic surgery has no exclusive claim to an anatomic territory, to a specific patient population or age group, or even particular techniques. I will submit that it is only through adherence to our tradition of research and innovation that plastic surgery will continue to exist as a coherent specialty that pushes forward the frontier and to command the respect of our colleagues in the big house of medicine. For the purpose of sustaining and advancing the specialty, therefore, AAPS and PSRC assume unique responsibility for the future of plastic surgery. For the subject of my presidential address this afternoon, I decided not to give my usual scientific or surgical presentation. Rather, I'd like to share with you what I have observed and learned from my formative years and career. Everyone has a unique life story, and we draw lessons from our own experiences. And in retrospect, I learned a few things from a drastic change of environment that turned out to be beneficial to my career. As Joe mentioned, my parents sent me to the US at the age of 15 to live with my siblings. As they were finishing graduate schools and taking new jobs, I moved around the country with them and attended a new high school in the US every year for 3 years. My first destination in the US was Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, a college town in the Midwest. There was no one else who looked like me at Urbana High School. And my prior English lessons in spelling and grammar had not prepared me to listen or speak. I remember the 10th grade class in American literature, where I could barely understand the teacher's words, and reading a page would take me an hour with a dictionary. One day, Mrs. Tuchek wanted the class to practice creative writing and asked the students to collectively write a story. Each student was asked to stand up and contribute the next sentence or paragraph to a free-flowing story. When it was my turn to stand up, I had no idea what had been said before me, and I could barely make out a coherent sentence on the subject. As you can imagine, the initial puzzlement was followed by laughter by my classmates, and I was thoroughly embarrassed. I was a complete outsider in the foreign land with unfamiliar culture and novel customs, yet I was determined to fit in. To become proficient in English, I had to listen to each word carefully, then figure out what the speaker was trying to convey. I also spent a lot of time watching the evening news on TV because news anchors spoke clearly with a particular cadence to facilitate understanding. For those of you who wonder why I have such a unique speaking style, it is because I learned to speak English from television news. I figured out the best way to communicate my thought is to speak in a cogent and succinct manner, the same way that Walter Cronkite did on CBS Evening News. Now, for those of you who are too young to know Mr. Cronkite, he was one of the most respected journalists in his era and was even cited as the most trusted man in America. And I was fascinated by the way he spoke and practiced many times his closing line at every news telecast. And that's the way it is, Friday, June 7, 1973. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS Evening News. Good night. Furthermore, adjusting to new environments and customs made me appreciate the value in learning from people of different backgrounds and perspectives. I became accustomed to seeing things from other people's perspective and understanding why they see things differently and how they approach things a different way. In hindsight, these necessary skills to adapt to a new culture and language in listening, speaking, and understanding different frames of reference have served me well in my career. My siblings and I did not have rich uncles or know people with influence or network in the US. During the early years, they owned no homes or significant property and moved from place to place for jobs after graduate school. When I went to college, each sibling would mail me a $10 check each month for living expenses. However, a realization from these formative years was that while I had no roots, no connection, and little resources in my new country, the finest universities and hospitals opened their doors and gave me scholarships and education. A competitive system for sure. Subsequent opportunity for career advancement then became available to me, as they did to many of my colleagues, regardless of our background or resources. Such availability of best education and jobs would have been inconceivable in other parts of the world. Our country may be imperfect, but I'm convinced it is still a land of opportunity like no other place on earth. During my education and training years, I encountered many talented and inspiring people, but everyone conducted themselves differently. If you can hear a lot by listening, according to Yogi Berra, you can see a lot by watching. And I developed a habit of watching people closely, particularly those in leadership positions, and took note of their positive traits and tried to emulate them. And these senior surgeons shown exhibited attributes that served as models for me. Dr. James May, a former president for the association, was my residency program director, then hired me for my first job. And for those who know Jim, there's no one as inquisitive and capable of asking probing and incisive questions. In fact, it's been said that a major benefit of training at MGH those days was to be able to avoid Dr. May as your oral board examiner. I became intrigued by his ability to probe and identify gaps, and have tried in my career to listen to every presentation on any subject with the mindset, what would Dr. May ask? And over the years, the habit has made me become more critical of any presentation and to ask questions that may expose deficiencies. Dr. Jim Strickland, an orthopedic hand surgeon who founded the Indiana Hand Center, was the lead surgeon for my hand fellowship and former president of American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. While I learned much about rheumatoid hand management and tendon transfer techniques from Dr. Strickland, it was his interaction with patients that left the deepest impression and affected my subsequent practice the most. Even pressed by a fast-paced clinic schedule, Dr. Strickland always communicated with patients by looking into their eyes and related to them on a personal level that is seldom seen. I still remember how he spoke to a patient's wife after a devastating nerve transection in the OR with unmatched candor and sincerity. At the end of the conversation, I did not know whether she was feeling worse for her husband or for Dr. Strickland. The electronic health record has forced many of us to face the computer screen rather than the patient in the exam room, and we can all be better doctors by following Dr. Strickland's example. Dr. Tom Starzl, who pioneered liver transplantation, experienced high complications when he began to perform the operation. In fact, from 1967 to 1979, more than half of his liver transplant recipients died within the first year. The high mortality rate did not deter him, and the outcome of liver transplant steadily improved with greater experience and better immunosuppressive drugs. A true surgeon scientist, Dr. Starzl also demonstrated dogged determination when pursuing the controversial subject of chimerism-induced tolerance. He encouraged our team at University of Pittsburgh to study donor marrow infusion in the laboratory to minimize immunosuppression for our hand transplant patients. I still remember when I was upset about the first rejection in our first hand transplant recipient, he comforted me by saying, "Congratulations, Andy, your chimerism protocol is starting to work." Dr. Starzl was a staunch believer of science, undaunted by setback, and was a resolute and strong-willed optimist in pursuing his goals. While I was fortunate in encountering these and other exceptional physicians in my career, it was the quality and character demonstrated by them in everyday action that served as models for me to emulate. I have described some lessons that I learned over time that were beneficial for my career. However, there were additional points that I have observed that may be helpful for those wishing to thrive in the academic medical center. In my career, I encountered different issues at each rung of the academic ladder. I have given advice to students, residents, faculties, and department chairs, usually on an individual basis, on how to advance in the academic institution. I will start with suggestions for the beginning of an academic career, followed by my thoughts for mid-career and leadership positions. Now, these are my subjective viewpoints. Some may be obvious and others more subtle. And for this august audience, I suspect some points may resonate, while others you would modify. To prepare oneself for success, one must think through priorities and set clear goals for the career. In other words, what constitutes success for you? Well, life's lessons can begin in the childhood books one reads, such as this simple but profound conversation in Chapter 6 of Alice in Wonderland between Alice and the Cheshire Cat. In other words, to paraphrase Lewis Carroll, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. Hopefully, we all know where we're going by setting long-term goals with time targets and metrics at each point. Next, you should work in the institution or department where your goals are valued. Depending on one's priority, what may be an optimal institution for one individual may be a poor fit for another. For example, any of the following or a combination can be a worthwhile career priority, but different institutions may value them to different degrees. Finding an institution whose priority matches yours is essential. A good clinician may not advance easily in a research-intensive university, while an aspiring investigator may not get the support or collaboration needed in a clinically focused environment. And just as importantly, you want to be working for a division chief or department chair who supports your aspiration and has the means to do so. Do you know how major decisions are made in your institution? There's a saying that if you have seen one medical school, you have seen one medical school. Meaning all medical schools are unique in their structure and operations. Once you join an institution, it will be worthwhile to get to know what its governance and decision-making process. The relation between the medical school and health system may also be variable from one academic medical center to another. Most importantly, you should know how your role fits in the structure and understand the pathway to get to yes, and that is the people you need to convince to influence things. There's no relation more important for your professional success than the one with your immediate supervisor. Regardless of how well you knew the chief before starting the job, it is essential to develop a relation with your supervisor based on transparency and trust. It takes effort to build mutual trust, and you should be candid and forthright with your supervisor. Obviously, nothing is more important than personal integrity, and there's no room for dishonesty or unprofessional behavior. Receiving sound advice and mentorship is important, but you should have more than one mentor or a committee of mentors. For example, building a committee specific to your needs could include the following: a tutor who orients you to organization culture, professional skill, and help to locate needed resources. A coach advisor who provides career guidance, feedback, and support, and also serves as a sounding board and problem solver. A sponsor who provides funding, political, and moral support. An intervener who intercedes on your behalf and runs interference where needed. And a peer who knows what you're going through at each stage. Promotion is the means by which the institution used to validate faculty fulfillment of its academic missions. However, the faculty appointment tracks and criteria for promotion are different in every medical school. And I know instances where faculty members have been in the wrong appointment track for what they do best. A faculty member should therefore be familiar with the promotion expectation at the start of the job by attending promotion workshops and reading about the rules and criteria, discussing with supervisor at least every year about prospect for promotion, seeking advice if necessary from promotion experts outside the division or department. And you will learn, for example, that original articles in high-impact journals at first or senior author are far more valuable than a large number of middle author review papers or chapters. Thus, direct your time and efforts efficiently for those achievements that come most toward promotion. Finally, don't rush the promotion. A promotion application earlier than 5 to 6 years at the current rank leads to scrutiny by the promotion committee and often a higher bar. In promotion jargon, it is better to wait an extra year or two for a slam dunk promotion rather than chancing a possible denial for early promotion, which will set back your career. I have shared these points at the start of my academic career to prepare yourself for success. But what will be the next step to stand out in the institution? Well, first, there's no substitute for doing excellent work in your own area, whether it's taking great care of patients, being a phenomenal teacher of residents and students, and or doing cutting-edge research. Not everyone wants career advancement to leadership position. For those who do, the next task is to allow more people to know about your excellence, particularly leaders at different levels in the medical school or health system. One caveat is not to bypass your immediate supervisor while reaching someone at a higher level for meetings. For example, when I was a division chief at University of Pittsburgh, I wanted to let the medical school dean and health system CEO know about the exciting work by our faculty in plastic surgery. However, I made sure that my surgery department chair was aware. In fact, he encouraged me to speak to his own supervisors, sign of a good leader. Whoever you meet with, you should describe your work in a positive but factual manner, as exaggerations and hyperbole can only be counterproductive. Knowing the institutional leaders and expressing your interest to get involved may provide more opportunities for committees, task forces, or leadership positions. And once you get invited to an institution committee or task force, regard it as a chance to shine. After you get noticed by doing good work, you will get more and often better opportunities. You want to be known in the institution as a good citizen and team player who has talent, enthusiasm, and drive to contribute. A strategic way to contribute is to understand the institutional priorities, which may change from the time you were hired and comprise one or more of the following. As a faculty member, you may select one or more of these areas that best fit with your aptitude and motivation. And if you do excellent work in the area of the institution priority, you will receive recognition by the leaders more quickly and may obtain further opportunity by advancement and leadership. To be successful, whether it's conducting a project, building a program, or leading a division, having sufficient resources is a requisite. The recruitment package for an incoming faculty member or division chief or department chair can determine his or her future success as much as personnel circumstances and effort. And in order to negotiate smartly for resources, one needs to do homework on institutional or departmental priorities, available resources for distribution, and realistic amount to ask for. It is never a good idea to talk to only one person for advice. Rather, seeking a variety of input from people in the know with different standpoints will inform your request to increase the chance for a successful negotiation. In my experience, negotiation for resources is best framed in terms of shared goals between the individual and the department or institution. For example, when I was negotiating the recruitment package to be the inaugural department chair at Johns Hopkins, I did not use any dollar amounts. Rather, I listed the items I knew the institution wanted for plastic surgery to succeed, such as research program startup, new faculty hires, and support for a clinical hand transplant program. And then it became the institution's task to price out the respective costs without sounding greedy myself. Oh, how much did I want to get paid? I told them from my research that great academic medical centers compensate their department chairs at the 75th percentile of AAMC benchmarks. That's all I did. Finally, any request for a resource should be ambitious but realistic, with a full knowledge of institution priority and capability. And any back and forth should be framed at what is in the best interest of the program and the institution. After distinguishing yourself with outstanding work, the final elements for career advancement are enhanced professional relation and self-improvement. No different from other fields, maintaining good working relation with colleagues is not only advantageous, but also essential for success. It takes effort to build some professional relation based on transparency and trust. I spoke earlier about the utility of viewing matters from others' perspective, and I will submit that emotional intelligence and good communication can resolve the great majority, maybe 85%, of issues in academic medicine. There are also pitfalls to avoid in managing relations with colleagues. One common mistake that I've observed many highly educated people make at all levels of academic medicine is to email, call, or meet while angry. So if you have to vent and write an email, please leave it in draft form overnight. And more than likely, the next morning, you will think of a more tactful and effective way to express your disagreement or frustration. In other words, you don't have to sacrifice a relation to make your point. Another thing that does not come easy to most of us is to admit mistakes. But a sincere admission reflects introspection, self-confidence, and strength of character that put you in better stead in others' view. And finally, politics makes strange bedfellows. And one's antagonist on one issue may become an important ally on another issue in the future. Thus, one can always disagree with colleagues with candor and courtesy, but making anything personal will only come back and hurt your cause. I've been fortunate having opportunities in my career to lead research laboratory, plastic surgery programs, and hand transplant program in 2 institutions. And I've learned the best way to promote one's success is to give due credit to those faculty members, collaborators, and team members who have contributed to the overall outcome. Plastic surgery draws talented people. The more they're recognized and empowered, the more they want to contribute to the team. For example, our hand transplant programs require participation from multiple surgical and medical specialties, transplant nurses, hand therapists, psychologists, social workers, etc. We also need significant time and commitment of orthopedic and plastic hand surgeons from centers outside the institution, and in the case of penile transplant program, urologists, bioethicists. I don't think our program could have succeeded without complete buy-in of all the parties and due recognition of their indispensable contribution. The lesson I learned was that the more a leader gives credit to the team and thereby motivates and empowers them, the stronger and more effective the team becomes. The ability to work with the students, residents, and fellows is one of the privileges of being an academic faculty member. The joy of teaching, such as the highs one gets from leading a resident through a challenging case, or great vibes from a teaching conference, motivates many of us in the midst of hard work and high demands of academic medicine. In addition, investing time and effort in teaching resident students earns one respect not only amongst the learners, but other faculty. After all, one's reputation travels, whether it is to patients, other residents, referring physician colleagues, or institutional leaders. My last piece of advice may be more difficult for some to implement. I'm convinced that negative feedback is far more valuable than positive feedback when it comes to self-enhancement. Positive feedback is certainly nice to get and may be beneficial by reinforcing what one is doing right. However, it is too easy to dismiss the negative feedback, thereby missing an important opportunity for self-improvement. For example, I was not too happy when a resident survey at a previous institution described me as intimidating and not easy to relate to. Now, my initial reaction was, well, the resident did not really know me, as my children found it laughable that I was intimidating to others. However, when I reflected on the comments further, I began to appreciate the validity of their feedback and how the residents came to feel that way. After all, I was usually serious from an authoritative position. I did not crack jokes often because I did not want to get into trouble. And yes, I talked like Walter Cronkite. So I tried to address the issue by interacting with the residents more casually and increasing opportunity for social occasions such as going out for group dinners. Now, please don't get the impression that I have corrected the problem, as my current department chairs still say I'm difficult to read as their boss. All joking aside, we should recognize it's not easy for others to provide negative feedback. It takes effort and sometimes risks critiquing others, especially someone higher on the pecking order. And over the years, I've learned to gently prod people and solicit candid feedback, giving them psychological safety, if you will. So recognizing the importance of negative feedback, learning how to solicit them, and then making adjustment are skills that will result in continual self-improvement in one's career. Finally, I'd like to go beyond individual advice and share perspectives from institutional leadership on how a plastic surgery program can thrive in an academic medical center. Faculty in the plastic surgery division department should be viewed institution as an integrated, cohesive team with a common purpose. And because plastic surgery is a small specialty, we need to have a certain number of faculty, perhaps at least 10 or 15, in order to have a noticeable impact on institutional mission. An easy way to make plastic surgery valuable to the institution is to offer reconstructive surgery that other specialties depend on for their own mission. In most academic medical centers, a specialty will not get due respect from institution leadership or other department unless it excels in scholarly contribution, including federal research grant. A point already made. Good relations with peers are just as important on a programmatic basis as it is individually. And plastic surgery faculty should actively participate in affairs of the medical school or health system. Our colleagues in most other fields don't understand cosmetic surgery and are jealous of high compensation for plastic surgeons. Therefore, don't flaunt them. All the good work by plastic surgery faculty needs to be factually publicized around the institution and emphasized with its leadership. And advocacy for resources and opportunity takes dedicated and persistent efforts. And unless plastic surgery becomes a department, it will not receive the same consideration by the institution as ENT, orthopedic, and other surgical departments for resources and opportunities. As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you are on the menu. However, department status needs to be earned with achievements in the above areas. There are always political terrains to navigate, and every institution is different. But as we learn from Alice in Wonderland, we should know where we are going. In my 32-year career in academic medicine to date, I have encountered wonderful trainees, colleagues, and mentors to whom I shall always be grateful. There are too numerous for me to acknowledge at this meeting, but I have many treasured photographs. Academic medicine is not an easy career choice, but I know you agree with me that the collegiality and friendship make it all worthwhile. In closing, I'd like to return to my family. As Joe mentioned, my father was a bomber pilot in the Nationalist China Air Force. He flew a risky mission as a young pilot to meet communist leader Chu Enlai and eventually rose to become a lieutenant general under Chiang Kai-shek. One of my most cherished career moments was for my dad at 102 years of age to attend my presidential address at the 2012 meeting of the American Society for Surgery of the Hand, titled The Power of Inclusion. My siblings helped to bring me up after I moved to the U.S. in support of my adaptation to a new country. Terry and I met in my fourth and last high school in Princeton, New Jersey, and we will be celebrating our 44th wedding anniversary this summer. She would like to brag that she did all the packing for the 7 moves that we have made since we were married. We raised 3 wonderful children. Jonathan, a special needs adult in Pittsburgh who is special to us in so many ways. Jacqueline, a psychological counselor in Dallas, and Joshua, a software engineer turned chief technology officer in New York City. Terry cannot be here today because she is bravely battling pancreatic cancer. It goes without saying that my career would not be possible without her steadfast support and sacrifices. In conclusion, I appreciate the opportunity to share with you this afternoon the lessons that I learned from my upbringing and academic career. They were helpful to me, and I hope you can take 1 or 2 points home. It's been a distinct honor for me in the past year serving as the president of the American Association of Plastic Surgeons. Thank you.